Prachi, are you there?
Yes, Divya.
Yeah, should we begin? Yeah, I think
Okay.
yeah. Okay.
All right. Okay, hello everyone. I'm Prachi and I extend a very warm welcome to all of you on behalf of ISOLA Mumbai MMR chapter. A very good evening to all. Before we begin, I request all the audience to keep your mics off for like a mic and camera off for better experience. We are all virtually together now for the finale of Flash Fiction Competition 2020. We received an extremely overwhelming response for the competition, and we are very excited to have reached this stage where today we are announcing the winners. Please know that we are also streaming this event online on YouTube. That's YouTube Live. So more audience and viewers can be a part of this. I would also take this opportunity to request everyone to subscribe to our ISOLA Mumbai MMR chapter YouTube channel for more updates. We have today with us all our eminent jury members, and I welcome them all. We will be in conversation with them shortly, where we look forward to hear their experiences about being a crucial part of this competition. We also have a very wide variety of audience with us today. Some joining from Google Meet, some from YouTube Live. I'm sure you all are there with us. I take this very opportunity to request Subhagya, Honorary Secretary, ISOLA Mumbai MMR chapter, to brief our audience about ISOLA and the work we do. So over to you, Subhagya.
Thank you, Prachi. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I will just give you a quick introduction about ISOLA. So, Indian Society of Landscape Architects, ISOLA, a professional body of landscape architects, was established in May 2003. ISOLA has over 500 members from different states of the country and some from across the world. The society is at the forefront of creating a global awareness about the fast emerging profession of landscape architecture and promoting and enhancing the professional excellence among its members in India. Mumbai MMR chapter is one of the chapters of ISOLA. Mumbai chapter has been involved in various academic as well as social activities. In conquering with this aim of creating awareness among the professional of landscape architecture and sensitivity to the environment, it has hosted many events such as show, the research writing workshop, 21 days sketch down, selfie on site, flash fiction, and our upcoming event of SD Vaidya Memorial Lecture Series. As a chapter, we have always thought of organizing events and take steps which would involve and engage not only the allied fields but reach across variety of professions. I now introduce a member of our current elected committee to you. Our elected office bearers are Honorary Chairperson Devyani Deshmukh Upasne, myself, Honorary Secretary Subhagya Atale Raval, our Honorary Treasurer Rishikesh Padke. Our elected members are Prachi Nadkarni, Minesh Chinani, Dhara Shah, and Anuradha Wahagre. We as a team are very grateful to all of you for your support, while all EC members are engaged with academic and landscape architecture practice in their own different ways. The passion and responsibility towards the field of landscape architecture is what brings us together voluntarily. Now I would request our honorary chairperson to introduce the flash fiction competition and take this event ahead. Thank you so much. Over to you, Devyani.
Thank you, Subhagya. The last year has given a new meaning to the word well-being. Well-being in terms of both physical as well as mental health. The pandemic has already resulted in a huge loss of life. However, it has been said that the impact of the pandemic will be seen even more in terms of its effect that it has on the mental well-being of the society in the coming years. In this context, we, as ISOLA, felt that exploring what enables or nourishes the well-being of the society was the need of the moment. Thus, this idea of exploring the links between landscapes and well-being have resulted into the Flash Fiction Competition 2020, deciphering the hidden links between landscapes and well-being, which was an open call for short stories. The idea was to explore the links between the two seemingly distinct areas of study, one falling more in the psychological realm and the other in the landscape studies realm. We, as a body of landscape architects, felt the need to bring forth this very idea of overlap between the two, of what could be between the two, and what could be the possible learnings from these overlaps. Like mentioned in the brief earlier, the story had to be imaginary, either science fiction, fantasy, can be about anything which investigates or describes or narrates the relationship between human, nature, landscapes from the perspective of well being, health, and happiness. And what a plethora of entries did we receive, exploring the variety of ways of looking into the relationship between landscapes and well being. We actually received a lot of entries across the globe, and it was interesting to see the kind of variety also that came in, variety of thought processes that came in with those entries. So it was an uphill task then to judge and select the best entries, a task which was done with a lot of patience, rigor, and right amount of humor by our esteemed jury. Coming from diverse backgrounds, each one of them had a unique viewpoint regarding these stories, and of course, it resulted in a lot of discussion and brought forth even more or unfolded even more aspects of the entries to be looked into. With this, I'd like to introduce to you our esteemed jury and request each one of them to briefly talk about their thoughts regarding the theme, the competition, about the entries which we received, the judging process, their criterias of judging, and their takeaways, if any. With this, it is my privilege to introduce the first juror, Margi Shastri, who is a writer, editor, storyteller. Margi is a writer, editor, translator, researcher, teacher with over 4 decades of experience in the creative landscape and having worked across medias, writing for comics, newspapers, magazines, TV, and movies. She uses her scripts and videos to concord designer courses for students as visiting faculties in various universities, including NID, CEPT, NIFT, NIRMA, the Faculty of Journalism at MSU Baroda. As a scriptwriter and associate editor for Amar Chitra Katha and Tinkle, visual communication was a forte, which was further enhanced while script writing for the TV with Surabhi, Khana Khazana, Musafir Huyaro, Yatra, and Gurukul. Storytelling is her special skill, especially in the Indian folk style. Margi, we're keen to hear your thoughts. Over to you.
Thank you, Devyani. Over the years, I had abridged my introduction as Margi Shastri writer. But after going through the entries, I think I have to withdraw that. I don't think I can qualify myself as a writer after reading the rich repertoire that we have given us the chance to go through. When I first saw the theme of the flash fiction, landscape and well-being, my first thought was, will people connect? Because they seem to be completely at odds with each other, because we have chosen to break our bond with nature so long ago that we have even forgotten that we did so. But when the entries were given to us, and I read through, it was such a joy to see the diversity, the richness in form, approach, theme, style. I was really enjoying the process, and I was really wishing I didn't have to judge them, because that was the tough part. Reading them was joy, but trying to grade them was really tough. In my classes, I teach Indian aesthetics and creative writing, and one of my favorite, exercise to give to my students is to understand the navras, understand the concept of rasa in Indian aesthetics, and I try to ask them to feel how they have experienced each of the rasa in their life, to be able to really identify. And I felt this was being like, I felt a kind of deja vu that this was being thrown back at me, because when I went through the entries, I said, oh gosh, how is it possible that I'm getting, Hasya Shringar, Adbhut Vibhats everything in these entries. Like it was some kind of strange connect, because there was all the rasas were really, reflected in the entries as I read through them. And so let me, before I talk too much as a storyteller, as I've just been introduced, that I may go on and on for 1.5 hours. Let me share with you the method we had about as a jury for choosing the entries for the finals. So there was a two-stage process. At the first stage, we were told to just read the entries and choose the top 10, not by grading, just at 10 favorites. It was very difficult to do. I think we all struggled to find some that did not deserve to go into the first 10. I think all the jury will agree with me there. And so we had to find our own method of doing so. But I must confess now that I did grade them, because I I didn't know what else to do. And I said, okay, this is a mammoth task. So it was January. So I said, okay, I'm going to start 14 January is supposed to be a good day to begin good things, right? Auspicious day. So I chose through 14th morning, evening, and 15th. I read at a stretch. And then I also actually wrote the grade, and being a kind of a compulsive editor, I also made notes of any spelling and grammar errors in case the finals are chosen, then we may need to do a little bit of editing. And another thing I did is I noted the time I took for reading each of the entry. I have that still, because I think what happens is when a piece of writing draws you, you kind of linger over it to savor the flavor. So I have the notes of my marks, but also the time notation for each one in my little book. And at the next round, after we all had 10 each and we pulled them together, then they were checked for plagiarism by the ISOLA committee, and then we were given the entries back to choose the first 5 and to actually grade them. And as it would be expected, that because all of us come from not only because all of us come from a different background, but so many of the entries kind of vied for the top place, that it was again a very, very difficult decision. And as it would have it, that we did not come up with the identical 5. All of us had a different choice. There were a few overlaps, which were like maybe from the fact that the 5 that really emerged anti-gravity and came up top, but we had our own favorites of the first 5. So there was this amazing online meeting where we cajoled and convinced and told each other why we liked the one we liked, and it was a wonderful process, because not only has ISOLA given us a chance to read these, but you have made a family of the jury so that we could really manage our interpersonal skills to come up with the first 5. So I think we've enjoyed the process of interacting with each other as much as we've enjoyed the process of selection. So now we will, as we go through, you will see which one, the first 5 that won it. But I must put on record the fact that though there are 5 entries and a finite number of entries that qualified but what you have done is you have started a process. You've started a process that touches not only the people who actually, succumb to the temptation of writing on these 2 and send their entries, but many people who thought they would want to and they didn't have the time or could not find, meet the deadline or whatever the reason, and many others who hesitated whether their work would qualify. But I think each person who saw the contest online on social media, it would have triggered a wave of thoughts. And for people who have entered the contest would have talked to people around them. So you're setting a kind of motion of concentric circles going outwards, where a lot of people have been touched and realized that there is, which all of us have actually realized through last year, but we have not put it into words, that there is a very, very strong and unbreakable bond between the connect between the landscape and our well-being. So thank you for ushering us all into a hopefully newer world of a more caring and nurturing and happier place. Thank you, Devya.
Thank you, Marky. It was wonderful to hear you, and thank you for being so generous with your compliments as usual. Next juror for the day is Dr. Sridevi Rao. Dr. Rao is a landscape architect based out of Telangana. She's a visiting professor at the College of Architecture and Planning, Church of South India Institute of Technology since 2000. Along with her extensive practice in the field of landscape architecture, she's published numerous papers, out of which recent papers are entitled Public Housing and Public Amenities, Achieving Sustainable Development Goal 11.7 at the Healthy City Design Conference held at Royal College of Physicians, London in 2019, and Urban Networks of Place, the Case of Hyderabad, Telangana State, India. She is also the author of the book titled A Measure of Community, Public Open Space and Sustainable Goal, Notion Press, Chennai. I now request Dr. Rao to kindly speak regarding her experience of the competition and the theme. Ma'am, you're on mute. You'll have to unmute yourself.
Thank you, Devyani. It's been wonderful again to meet everybody this evening, and we'll be meeting some of the participants too, I guess, online. And for me, the experience that Mumbai chapter has offered has, kind of reminds me of absolute quiet when we, go snorkeling or something, and we wade into the sea, and then you find all these colors, and you're finding your way and discovering and watching and experiencing. And what a world you've opened for us, because as professionals, as I said before in one of our meetings, we tend to kind of restrict and worry too much about what we do and what comes on the ground and how it affects others, and what we preserve and conserve and so on. And we are so limited in that sense that we, kind of limit our world to thinking too much and worrying too much about the impact our profession has on the ground. Because landscape architecture, unlike architecture, is dynamic, it changes. You go into a garden from morning till evening, there are leaves on the ground, there are fallen flowers, there's a bird which has come back to the tree. I mean, from these minute little things, everything keeps changing diurnally, seasonally. And so it's a vast canvas that we are exposed to as professionals. And here we find that in the written word, the world has actually opened up this vast world, which, is so connected to landscape and to nature as such. And, the experience of actually that everybody is so intimately connected with nature, and we know that. But to actually see it in the written word, and the imagination that has gone into actually thinking about nature and their relationship and the well-being that you get back from nature in some form or the other, tangible, intangible, whatever. And so when I first read all the entries together, I found that, some were about trees, some were about the land itself, the landform, and some were about, the water bodies and lakes and all that. Some were, so it was, so what I first did was that when I read through them, just went through them quickly the first time, I just kind of categorized them in these three categories, which were overlapping, obviously, because these are stories, so they talk about so many things. And then, of course, I kind of, again, limited them, to the sun, rain, heat, night, day. These were the broad categories which I found, obviously because of these, 4 decades of practice and all that. So the thinking doesn't go beyond that, unfortunately, or fortunately, maybe. So after dividing all these like this, we like I started picking and choosing the best, which conveyed this relationship the best to the best, in a fictional form. It was written well, and was I waiting for it to waiting to read the end and what happens at the end and all that stuff. The excitement that it generated for me was really amazing. It's fantastic. I hope all these stories, even though the winners might be 5 in number, but I hope all these stories come out in a book so that everybody can read, and they could be presented to everybody. It would be so wonderful to read these short stories, this flash fiction. What an experience it's been, and I thank you with all my heart. And of course, the jury members. It's been so wonderful to meet people like Gauri, Vinayak, and Marti, and and of course Geeta and Urmila. We go back a long, 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 long way. But it's so wonderful to see that this family which we've become. I hope it endure. It goes on further also in some form or the other, in some interaction or the other in the future. Thank you so much, Devyani and Mumbai chapter again.
Thank you, Dr. Rao. And we are intending to create a book out of the short stories, and we'll require a lot of help from all of you.
Absolutely.
So, of course, we are intending to continue the family further, as you rightly pointed out. Let me introduce the next juror, Gauri Raje. Gauri is an anthropologist and a storyteller who works in UK and India with adults in vulnerable groups. Her performance projects include storytelling of folk stories of the land and rivers of central parts of central India, and tales of exile and sanctuary stories from around the world, exploring the themes of exile. Currently, she's working on stories around water in India and Scotland, and has worked in collaboration with UNICEF and the Living Waters Museum, India. She's especially interested in the concepts of witnessing in storytelling, translation, and multilingualism, and embodied nature of creating stories. Over to you, Gauri.
Yeah. Thank you, Devyani. And hello, everyone. Thank you, Sridevi, for actually, at the outset, I'll say, for bringing up the idea of a book. I think the richness of the stories that, we got in the competition absolutely deserves some sort of a legacy rather than just being left with those who formally, I would say, won. And kudos to you. But you had some tough competition. And the level of writing, of imagination was delightful, to say the least. When Devyani first approached me about being a jury for landscape and well-being, my first response was I felt overwhelmed. I think I felt overwhelmed for the participants as well, because both landscape and well-being are huge themes. And my first response was, if I was a participant, where was I even going to begin? How was I going to begin the connections? So the multitude of ways in which the participants have made these connections and sent in the stories was just walking in a field of fruits and grain and flowers and scents and navarasas and everything. It was, it was just amazing. I think I took about a week to read through the entries, because some entries you wanted to just go back to again and again, and there were others that kind of, linger on, like beautiful fragrances. They kind of haunt you. It took me a week to just read through, savor each of the entries, and then begin to wonder how in the world was I going to grade them. There was no way one could randomly pick one's favorites. So yes, of course, one had a criteria, and one of the things I'll kind of mention here is two things mattered to me quite a bit in terms of my criteria. I had about 5 criteria, including writing, the quality of writing, etc. But one was empathy. The empathy in the story vis-a-vis landscape, as well as what the participant sensed through well-being. And the other was originality. Now, this was a kind of a tricky criteria to work around because personally, I work a lot with nature stories and folk tales, as Devyani mentioned. And one of the things I find is nature demands a certain sense of common lands. And when you talk about common lands, whether it's social commons or whether it's landscape commons, you're looking for a sense of repetition. I'm a storyteller, and one of the things we prize in storytelling and we honor through storytelling is the number of tongues that a story has been through. And we say that a story is remembered because many people want to tell it. And each person who wants to tell a story finds a relationship with the story, finds a resonance. And then how they tell it depends on the time, place, and context. But there's something about the commons that a story creates, which is very precious. So personally, I wasn't looking for something that was amazingly original. What I was looking for was, how many times would I want to tell the story? How many times do I keep going back to it, resonate with it? And that became really important. So originality was take originality in that flavor, I guess, that your story has become something that people will want to tell rather than just remember. And empathy, oh well, what can I say about empathy? I think all I'll say is something I wrote down last night, which is that writing landscape is a tricky task. It's a tricky task because it is what I call the radical other. The landscape shares no symbolic frameworks within the human world, such as language. The language of the land, the language of nature is its own language. The only way one can make a connect is when the human world submits itself to a deep listening to this radical other. And when that deep listening happens, you might just, and this is a risk, you might just return with a semblance of a glimpse to attempt some sort of a translation and communication with the natural world. This submission is more than just a respect or even an empathy towards the natural world. It is a bowing down to nature. It is what in many communities, and you must have heard of the word dreaming the landscape. This is what it means, bowing down to the diversity of it, to the absolute otherness of it. And some of your entries were just amazing in capturing the sense of, your immersion in the landscape. There were stories which were stories of butterflies. There were stories of, I'm just looking through some of them. There were stories of points of views of leaves, of butterflies, of cityscapes, urban landscapes, which were looked at through the eyes of a bird or a human being. About, stories which were very much about just social landscapes. Stories that didn't even talk about nature, plants, water, air. They just talked about human beings, but the necessity of diversity in human communities within them. And to me, that was a landscape and well-being story as well. So, your panorama of imagination was tremendous. And I think I would just like to end with, saying, as Margi and Sridevi have both indicated, I think for many of you who would like to continue with, writing and going into a realm of imagination, go for it. This is just your beginning. I mean, there's so much potential in there. So just go for it, fly, and enjoy those immersions. I'll be looking forward to having a copy of the book when it comes out. I'd also like to thank ISOLA for dreaming up this topic and going with it, and all the hard work that you guys put in. We know behind the scenes what it involved. So thank you so much, Isola.
Thank you, Gauri. Even listening to your comments felt like listening to a story. So thank you for creating a story about the process of judging. Thank you so much. Next juror is Geeta Vaidua. Geeta is a landscape architect based in New Delhi. She's the co-founder and co-editor of LA Journal since 2001, a quarterly publication based on the subject of landscape architecture in the country. She has a deep interest in research work and studies in the realm of understanding the relationship between nature and culture, especially in the context of Indian subcontinent. Over to you, Geeta. You have to unmute yourself, Geeta.
Hi.
Hi. Yeah, you're absolutely audible.
I have a voice today. Yes, finally.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is a delightful experience, and thank you, ISOLA Mumbai, for inviting me to be, part of this wonderful competition. And it was very fascinating to go through the mindscapes of these writers, to explore their world of fantasy woven around their, daily experiences. As I am kind of dividing my, address into 3 parts. First is regarding the content. It was experiential narratives which were weaved around, the idea of fantasy, and then there were fictional accounts which were kind of inspired from, day-to-day understanding of life and other things. And then the second part is themes. There were diverse set of themes to these, stories. You have mythology, you have mythical realism, you have urban issues, you have environmental issues. And then there were deep, social and economical context to which people were responding. So this was again very amazing, and there were also tangible physical elements, and there were intangible experiential elements, and and it was, every story was a unique combination of these two kind of things. And as far as the writing language is concerned, the expression is concerned, it was very lucid, very simple, very kind of relatable expression, and the brevity was one of the main aspect which I really appreciated. It was very short and precise and very focused kind of a narration to the whole idea. And as far as my method of shortlisting the entries was concerned, I took kind of 3 weeks to do the first week, and then I stopped, and then 50 stayed in my mind. After that, another week, and then 30 stayed in my mind, and finally I was having 10 with me. So that was kind of a very kind of emotional criteria which I kind of developed for myself. Whatever lingered on will go with me further, and the rest is kind of behind me. And then regarding the criteria in terms of aspects which I was looking for, first was the subtleness, the subtleness of the expression, in the way the person has kind of subtly handled this idea of landscape and well-being, not in a very, very direct way. That was one of my main criteria. And then the second was looking at nature, something which is kind of living and growing and evolving as our human life. So that commonality between nature and human life, that was very important for me. It is not something very static. It is not something which is very ornamental. It is something of its own being which is growing and evolving, and also kind of kind of inspiring us in all the ways during all the stages of our life. That was very important for me. And then also the multi-layered context of nature, not only single aspect of nature. So the stories which kind of came close to my heart, they were having these 2-3 kind of aspects in a very very strong way. And I would also like to note one thing. I really enjoyed absence of design professional writing in this competition. This is one learning which I have taken from this competition. We are taking ourselves too seriously. We need to relax, and we need to travel light. This is one learning which I have kind of taken from this competition, and I would like to request ISOLA Mumbai to kind of do it more regularly. We need these kind of prayers in these kind of very very we can say very very crude and very very rigid world. You need these kind of prayers. Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you, Geeta. Again, I'll reiterate, it was really nice to hear you today, first and foremost. Yeah, and coming from you, because you keep on reading so much because of LA Journal also, and that you still enjoyed all the entries in itself makes it even more, appreciable. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Devyani. Yeah.
I'll move to the next juror, Vinayak Berne, urban designer, city planner, educator. Vinayak is a leading urban designer and city planner based in Los Angeles, a professor for urbanism at the University of Southern California, and director of the India-Netherlands knowledge platform, My Livable City. He was profiled as an emerging thought leader by World Architecture News in 2013. His projects include satellite cities, new towns, and inner city revitalizations, master plans in United States, Canada, China, Kenya, Australia, Panama, and Mauritius. He is the editor, author of numerous books, including The Emerging Asian City, Affordable Housing, Inclusive Cities, and the forthcoming COVID and the City. Over to you, Vinayak.
Thank you so much. So first of all, the most unique thing about this competition is that it happened during a pandemic, a global pandemic, which I think is going to set it apart from so many others that are going on or that have gone on before. But the thing that made me really happy about this is, first of all, it was a competition that was open to everyone, not just writers, not just designers. We usually try to limit competitions to so-called expertise. But I think what this competition really did is sort of raise the broader question that something as important as a city or landscapes or well-being, or even our planet, if you think about what's going on right now, is not going to be decided through experts or professionals. We're all invested in it. We all have things to say and share. We all bring something to the equation. The pandemic is a time which has made us think of so many things in so many different ways. We know that landscapes as we know it have cliches and definitions that professionals give to it. But this is a trap in a way, because the pandemic has shattered all of this and proved to us that perhaps we're wrong. We can think about them in so many different ways. So what this competition has really done, and I love this portion of it, it's implicit, but I thought it was really the subtext of this competition, was it asked two fundamental questions, the way I saw it. It took us away from the complicit question, what is landscape? And changed the vantage point of this question to what can landscapes be? I think that was beautiful, the way I saw it. And in the same way, it took us away from the timid definitions of what is wellness, which itself comes with a lot of cliches, and therefore expanded the question to what can wellness be. And this theme was so pertinent to what is going on right now that itself was wonderful. So that's one. Landscapes, as Gauri said before, are all-encompassing imagined entities. They can be cultural, ecological, social, urban. I mean, they can just go on and on. And so is writing. Why do we write? We write for so many reasons. Perhaps it's a subconscious outpouring of a human mind trying to own something. perhaps it's a fictitious creation of an aspiration that you want it to be. So I found in, I don't know how many entries there were in the first run. My God, it took us tons of time to go through them. But I found essentially the incredible collection of flaneurs. Then in the turn of the 20th century in France, there was this wonderful terminology called flaneur. Flaneurs were people who would wander around the city, picking around just wonderful things. They would look at the city as a museum. Charles Dickens was a flaneur, for example. He would be paid by the word. So the reason many of us get bored, when, in a good way, when reading Charles Dickens' work is because he used to just keep on writing and writing and writing. But where did he get all this from? He got it by wandering the streets of Victorian London, and he would just wander and take all this in. So I found in these incredibly talented outpourings so many things that took me back to my own sort of growth as a person, not as an architect or anything like that. I found, and I've noted this down, I found the wit of Goscinny and Uderzo, people I've adored for, the kind of witty imagination they created in the Asterix comics. I mean, it's a piece of genius. I mean, you have a small little book you open and brings a smile to your face for no reason that you have no idea. I found in some the sort of profundity that I've loved in the works of Basho, the haiku of Basho. It's short, simple things that capture moments in just a few words that just stir your mind. In some, I even found the sort of evocative experience that you find in the ovis of Nyaneshwar. I have admired for the longest time. I think these are some of the most underestimated pieces of literature, at least in India. The ovis of the 12th century bards and saints in India. They were short, but they were incredibly profound. In some, I found, these inimitable capturing of scenes of Indian life and everyday life. Munshi Premchand was a genius at this. And he wrote in Hindi, but I remember studying them in school. We used to get bored reading his work in those days, but when I look back, they were so incredibly evocative. Then in others, I saw shades of Nora Burke. Nora Burke, as many of you know, was a colonial writer who captured short stories of forests and the sort of landscapes of colonial India. And it was incredibly beautiful. And finally, in some, I even found the spiritual, semi-mythic undertones of Khalil Gibran. So it was overwhelming to see the amount of talent that came from this. So what were my criteria? Since we were talking about criteria, there were essentially only two. I think at the end of the day, what changes text into writing or literature, what changes just brushstrokes on a paper to what we call painting, what changes putting bricks together into architecture, is really what it does to the haptic nature of humans, what it does to senses. I mean, what do you feel? How does it take you far beyond the mundane world into the possibilities of what can be? And I think that was an important criteria. So it was not about how beautifully you've composed your words. I think wordsmithing is eventually only a means to get somewhere. But I think it was difficult, but it was essential for me to keep the rational side of my professional mind away and free it to really ask myself, how did they touch me as a human being? Not an intellectual who's trying to prove something or anything like that, but what did it teach me in terms of the deeper aspects of what I am not seeing? So that was number one. And the second one, of course, was to what degree did it expand my vantage point in how I understood landscape? Because as professionals, we are often trapped in this idea that this is how we define landscape. And as I said before, there were pieces that immediately just completely changed the criteria of how I and others saw landscape. It forced us to see the world in a completely different way, either by changing the protagonist through which we see the world, or simply changing the definition of how we see the world. So what I would love to sort of end with is, sort of, it goes without saying, everyone has said it, to organize a competition like this is not just a lot of work, but it's also it needs a certain creative mind, a series of minds to come together and say, why are we doing this? What is this all about? My sincere hope is that the book will mark sort of the beginning of a tradition, that this should happen every year. And why should it happen every year? Because I think it will force everyone in the pandemic, beyond the pandemic, to really engage and think with all the critical issues that are going on and weave narratives in ways through which we can begin to understand them. The final line at the end of the day, as a means of congratulating the organizers, is to say that at the end of the day, we are all environmentalists. I mean, that's the best note I can leave us on. We're all, social thinkers and everything, but if the pandemic teaches us anything right now, particularly in the theme of this competition, we all have a role to play in crafting the destiny of where we are going. And that was the most beautiful thing of this competition. At the end of the day, whether you're talking about social landscapes, cultural landscapes, environmental landscapes, we were all forced to bring our voice out, proving that at the end of the day, we all must claim our stake in the cities we live in. So thank you so much for this, and congrats to the jury as well for some very difficult judging. But I think we finally have some winners.
Thank you, Vinayak. It is always an added pleasure to hear an urban planner talking so passionately about landscape. So thank you for your kind words. I'll move to the next juror, Urmila Rajyadeksha. Urmila Rajyadeksha, in her practice since 1995 in Mumbai, has donned many hats as an advisor, team member, researcher, policymaker, collaborator, designer, and teacher. Her works range from small interventions at individual and city level to large campuses. Her work for the front garden of Prince of Wales Museum, Mumbai, has been awarded honorable mention at the 2010 UNESCO Asia Pacific Awards for Cultural Heritage Conservation. Some of her works include developing a manual for landscape of national highways for NHAI, presently as the founding head of the Department of Landscape Architecture at LS Raheja School of Architecture. She's also conducted several academic studios and research initiatives in the field of landscape architecture. Over to you.
Thank you, Devyani, for that generous introduction. And then, as an academic, I've used flash fiction occasionally as a tool to bring hidden emotional values to the fore. Perhaps this was part of ISOLA Mumbai's intention when they organized this flash fiction competition on landscape and well-being. That is often not very precisely defined in our mental constructs and is very much based on our feel, and fiction is thus an apt medium of expression for it. Flash fiction in particular, with its quick and limited size genre, with its inherent honesty. Flash fiction is favored by many writers for its ability to convey deep truths and universal human emotion. When done well, flash fiction can convey deep truths and resonate with readers from all walks of life. As well, reflected the emotions of our present times. COVID fears, morbidity and loss dominated thoughts, it seems. Yes, some were very subtle and the ideas teased imagination by crisscrossing worlds. Yet others drew on the infinite fount of legends to instill meaning. What almost all the participants did, however, was to draw upon the connect of landscape with most a mandate for landscape architects and allied disciplines and a key takeaway. Well, judging these entries was not easy with intellectual parameters. However, as a team of jurors, we have done our best, and the diversity of thought exhibited by the way, I would like to congratulate the winners, whose names you will hear soon and you must be waiting for eagerly. and along with them, all the participants. And more words for you, and that is well done. Thank you for the opportunity and this journey.
Thank you uh, for your kind words, ma'am. In fact, we have three landscape architects in the panel of jurors, and each one is having very diverse criterias, even in that, regarding judging the entries. So, before I hand over the mic to Prachi, I'd also very briefly introduce our seventh panel jury member who could not be with us today, Dr. Edmund Fernandez. Dr. Edmund Fernandez is a non-resident senior fellow, Atlantic Council member, Health Task Force, DDMA, Government of Karnataka. He's an alumni of the US State Department, and he's also had multiple publications on his name, which touch upon important topics in the field of psychology. He's also written multiple books, which include the Handbook on Workplace Diplomacy, Small Things That Matter Much, to name a few. Though he could not be with us today, he was also a part of the final jury selection. Before Prachi takes over, I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank the jurors. And I must say that as we have received diverse entries which explore connections between landscapes and well-being, we have equally diverse criteria of judging, which have made the judging process even more robust, if I may say so. The final selection of the entries was a result of interesting debate and multiple viewpoints. A big thank you to all the jurors for sparing their valuable time and for being extremely kind and patient during the whole process. Your discussions and debates were a wonderful learning for us who could actually witness those. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank the EC of ISOLA Mumbai chapter, Subhagya, Rishikesh, Dhara, Prachi, Minesh, and Anuradha for their unstinting support and hard work. They've been working a lot behind the scenes, so guys, take a bow. And also for Anuj, who has been helping us out as and when required. Prachi, I now request you to take over the most interesting part of the session, which I think everybody would be actually waiting for.
Thank you, Devyani. I think the session was amazing, and I was just hoping that it goes on and on and on. I mean, we can't just get enough of when the jury members are speaking. So it was a treat. And I'm just going to add a little bit more suspense, or wait, or make the audience wait. Where I'm just going to quickly make some announcements where it's for the audience majorly, that we actually are having some more exciting events coming up in the month of March. The one that we have is SD Vaidya Memorial Lecture Series. And this time, because we are in the state of pandemic still, and we are online, we have a very different mode of conducting the series. So we look forward to have all of you there as well. Also in the month of April, which is celebrated as the World Landscape Architecture Month, we are having some interesting engagements with all the viewers. So there again, so please keep following us on the social media platform to have more information about all this stuff. So now, without any further delay, I would request Marky ma'am to announce the winners, while I would just add to the suspense and share my screen for a little drama.
Also, if any of the winners are there in the audience, you would...
Yeah, all right. I'm sharing my screen, ma'am, and over to you. Yeah.
You will have to unmute yourself, Marky.
Thank you for the honor of announcing the winners. I do this on behalf of all the jury members. And before the people who have participated but not come to the first 5, I must say that I'm really happy that the book has been collectively conceived right here on this digital platform, and I'm sure we will all help you to nurture it and become a reality. I volunteered to do so in public. Now, can we see the names of the winners now to share? Yeah. So we go to create the suspense from the two special mentions. The title of the entry is called One Blue Rose, and it's written by Ahmed Hassan Abaisi. The next special mention is This is an Oak Tree by Divyansh Arora. We come to the prizes now. The third prize is The Blue Unicorn by Anjana Jay. The second prize is Gangu's Grove by Asmita Patwardhan. And the first winner of the flash fiction contest is Indole by Nandini Bhosle. This is the first time we are looking at the names of the winners, because we have been going by the numbers and we were not aware of the names. So for us, it's a pleasant surprise to have names attached to the wonderful pieces of literature you have created, and we had the privilege of reading and choosing. Thank you for participating. Many congratulations to the winners and to everybody who participated. I'm sure we all wish that there were not just 5 but 25 prizes to be given, but the book is coming and that is going to be a prize for everybody who participated. Congratulations. And maybe if the jury would like to talk about, the other jury would like to talk about any of these entries, which are so vivid in our minds now, like we know them, like we know our life. Would you like to put in a word about these stories? Yeah. Who'd like to go first? Gauri? It's like musical chairs. Sorry, I just picked on him.
Just like to say congratulations, and yeah, we had a lot of discussions about who would take the first 3 places, and at one point we were even debating on whether we should award joint prizes, which unfortunately wasn't possible. Indole was one entry that was quite unique, wasn't it, in terms of its point of view, as well as I think what the jury felt, if I may speak a little bit on behalf of the jury, but on my part, was definitely that it drew attention to a very, very unrecognized sense that is so vital to well-being, which is smell. And I felt certainly that was one of the most unique things about this story, to arrive to the natural world drawn by your nose rather than the visuality of things, which seems to be an overwhelming sense that we as human beings seem to use these days. No one talks much about the smell, and there was something that was really evocative and beautiful about the writing of the story that drew attention to the sense of smell. So I'll just stop there. Thank you.
Can we?
I would really like to hear from the winners, if that's possible.
Yeah.
So I think
we have some of the winners at least in the meeting.
Yeah, we had all 3 of them. Nandini,
that would be wonderful.
Yeah, Nandini, Asmita, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hi, Asmita. Heartiest
How wonderful
congratulations.
to have a face to the right.
Yeah.
Thank you. First of all,
Great.
thank you. I think after listening to the jury, I was completely sure that I'm not winning any award, because I mean, they are such eminent people that even for them to read my work is my honor. And I cannot thank you enough for picking my story. And the competition itself was really wonderful because it was such a different thing to attempt, this particular topic. But most importantly, getting this feedback from these jury members is going to add just so much to my writing journey, and I am so much enriched by what I've heard today. So thank you. I'm really really very very honored to be picked as one of the winners. And definitely this story is also dedicated to my grandmother, who was my inspiration in my earliest connection with nature and landscape, and my love for nature is through her. So thank you very much everyone, and thank you ISOLA Mumbai for this fantastic opportunity. Thank you so much.
Tell us about your story as well. We want to know from the horse's mouth.
Yeah, actually, this is sort of partially, based on around my grandmother's life. And I lived in Pune, and I used to go to this ancestral village of ours, which was a completely different world for me, because I went to a convent school, and when I would visit my grandmother, it was in a time when there was a lot of social differentiation in people and thought processes. And for me it was very intriguing always as an experience to absorb it all, and to assimilate and see that what is this life that they are leading. And I had phenomenal respect for these women, because they were, we talk about feminism today, but this is something we are talking about, in the early 40s and 50s, when that was unheard of. And yet they were true feminists, and they were, they passionately believed in things, they pursued their dreams, they set out goals, and, they were fearless basically. And my story is sort of a tribute to them, because it was really actually, back-breaking work to have a plantation set up, run it, look after it, see to it that no one sort of cheats them and whatever. And to be uneducated, both of them were not did not get any schooling, but they were so world wise and so much full of wisdom that it was unbelievable how much I just got from them as a byproduct. And so partially the story is based around the kind of life that my grandmother lived, and what the scenes that I sort of picked when I used to visit there in my childhood. So instantly when I read about the theme about the wellness, I just I had no other thought process in my mind but this, because to me the deepest connection I have felt where a human being and nature interaction is concerned is through my grandmother. So that's how the story came about.
Thank you. We all met your grandmother and went where you did. It's so vivid.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm really, really honored to hear that. Thank you.
Asmita, I hope you are not an architect.
I am an architect, yes.
Okay.
Yes, but honestly, like you said initially, that because this competition was open to everyone, actually I took the chance to keep that aside, away, and just look at this from the two words, the landscape and well-being, and focus only on those two words. So that helped in most certainly, yeah.
Great. Do we have Nandini with us also? And Anjana, Nandini or Anjana?
Asmita, you should keep your camera on. You deserve it. You want to see you.
Thank you.
So, all the special mentions, if any one of you are here, we would like to hear from you. Okay, I think most
Any
of
of
them
the participants, maybe. Anybody who participated.
No, I think most of them have kind of left the meeting once the results were announced.
I see.
So then in that case, Prachi, over to you. Yeah, Anjana is here. Yeah, hi Anjana. Yeah. So Anjana is our...
Sorry.
Yeah.
Hello everyone. Good evening. I was not prepared at all, and this came out as a surprise. I'm really overwhelmed. So I'm not prepared to talk, but I just wanted to share my happiness here. So I'm outside right now, so I don't know how much I'm audible to everybody, but this has been. I think I'm audible, right? Okay.
Yes, you are. Yes, yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, okay. So thank you to everyone, to whoever, to ISOLA Mumbai for organizing this. I'm really very happy. I was not expecting this because I was expecting to come somewhere in the special mentions. So after the special mention was announced, I was really disappointed. I thought, okay, so I'm not getting anything, but uh, this is really big for me. Thank you very much. I don't have anything else to say. Thank you.
Tell us about your story.
Anjana, could you tell us something about yourself?
Oh, about myself? Okay, I'm from Kerala. I'm from Thrissur district of Kerala, and I'm a postgraduate in English. Currently a freelance content writer. I'm looking for jobs right now, so that's my present status. And about my job, I mean,
That's
about
wonderful.
my story. Yeah, about my story. I don't know. I had a lot of thought before writing the story, and I that's why I just wanted an open ending story. That's what I went for because in the current scenario, we know how the landscape has been changing, how climate change and everything has been affecting each and every life, not just the climate change, but also the pandemic. So how everything is going downhill. But I wanted to have, I always look forward to, a way of hope that everything is going to get well someday. So that I showed through the eyes of a little boy, a little child who has not known anything good in the world, in the nature, but who still dreams of something that's good, something good that's going to happen. So that was the very small gist of my story. Since I wasn't prepared for this, I don't know what to say anything, but I feel really happy that such eminent jury members have gone through my story. And so thank you very much. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much. Thank you. And congratulations to all the other winners. Really happy for you guys too.
I think we do not have Margi, you're on mute in case you're speaking. I think we had Nandini.
Is there anybody else? Any of the winners that you announced now? Maybe?
No, I think we had Nandini with us, but he's not here in it.
Yeah.
So, Prachi, over to you in that case.
Yeah. I think Anjana, I could really feel the happiness in your voice, and we are seeing you. So it's very nice to see the winners actually, and also like somebody said, have a face to the stories now, so to the titles. So in any case, congratulations to all the winners, and I cannot thank the jury enough for their support, for their time, and it's just this whole thing would have been completely incomplete without you guys being there. So with this, we come to the end of this beautiful virtual event, and we will definitely connect with all the winners and participants for the book and also the jurors. So thank you, and everybody have a good evening ahead. People from different time zones have a good day, and see you soon and connect with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations, Isola, and keep it going.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you very much. Congratulations to the winners.
That's all. Bye-bye.
Good luck.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.